Okay, in this video we're going to continue formatting and organizing our data before we do some evaluation of the business itself. So we'll start by saving a new version. And we'll call this Raw Data Complete Part 2. And the first thing I want to do is just get the sections organized a little bit. So if I look over here and I start actually reading these line items, it looks like I've got an income statement over here, and then it transitions to a balance sheet down here. So let's just put some headers together to keep ourselves organized. So I'm going to come up top here above the sales row, insert a row, Alt-IR, and I'll call this the income statement. And then I'm just going to format this blue and bold so it stands out a little bit. So we'll do bold, format it dark blue here. And then what I want to do is just recopy this header down for the balance sheet. So I select the whole row with Shift Spacebar, then Control C for copy. I come down here above the balance sheet, Shift Spacebar again, then Shift F10, and then hit E to insert the copied cells. And then just rename this the balance sheet. And obviously, instead of using that Excel shortcut, you could have just come down here, inserted a new row, and then redid the same process for the income statement. But to the extent that you can always copy existing formulas or formats, well, it will save you time. And you'll notice that that's going to be a recurring theme throughout the course. We're always going to take work that we've done and try to leverage that to save us time in future steps. And so I can't reiterate enough how important it is to get comfortable with all the keyboard shortcuts in Excel, because it will save you so much time as you're putting together these complex models. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is add a few columns for some input cells. Right now, all we have is a representation of the past, and what we need to do is analyze that past and then make some thoughtful assumptions about the future. So we need to map out some real estate in our model where those input cells will go that will help drive our future assumptions. So I'm going to insert some columns before column B here where our model starts. So I'll press Alt-IC to insert a column and then tap F4 a few times to repeat my most recent action. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll make 5 columns total. And then I just want to copy the width from my date cells here. So I'll do Control-C to copy, highlight these new columns, then I'll bring up my Paste Special window, then hit W down here for width. And you can see now I've brought that width of 12 to our 5 new columns here. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to freeze frames, because what I want to be able to see is no matter where I go in the model, I want to be able to see all of these line items on the left, and if I scroll down, I always want to be able to see the dates on the top. And so we're going to do something called freeze frames, so we always have that reference point no matter where we navigate to in the file. So I'm just going to come over here below 130, 115 and press Alt-WFF. And now my frames are frozen. So you can see if I scroll down, the dates are always at the top up here. And then if I scroll to the right, well, then I can always see my line items over here. And that's called freezing frames. Okay, then just a cleanup item for presentation. I'm going to press Control-T, and that gets rid of all of my grid lines. And now that's a macro. So you can see if I press Control-T again, all the grid lines come back. Model just looks a little bit cleaner if we get rid of those grid lines. So Control-T removes them. And then the last thing is I want to build in some flexibility into our model, since we have to add some new hires and new line items throughout the course. And so I'm going to insert a few rows down here, but I want to adjust the sum formula so that we can reduce error in the file in the future. So I know at some point we're going to have to add some new hires. That's what the managing partner talked about on the call. So I'm going to insert a row for that for now. And here's what happens. If I do that and I press F2 on this sum, you can see the sum formula didn't actually come with us for this new row. And that could be a problem for your model because it won't get picked up in the subtotal. So what I'm going to do is adjust this sum formula in every place in the file where we have a sum or subtotal. And then that way, anytime we add rows in the future, I know that our model captures everything. So for now, the simple fix is I just drag this formula down one row. And so I will always leave one row of space in every single section. That way, when I insert a bunch of rows here, you can see if I open up the formula, everything that is potentially new gets captured. Whereas if I come one cell to the right, you can see it only picks up the original data. So anything down here wouldn't get picked up. It'd be a big problem for our file. So I'm going to delete all the excess rows. And then come back here again. You can see the formula contracted just fine. And I'm going to bring it out to the end of our data set with Control-R. So I've got Control-Shift-Right arrow to come out to the end over here. Then hit Control-R. Then F2, and you can see now the formula works in every single month. So I come back to the beginning here. I'm just going to do the same thing down in the balance sheet. So let's come to the total assets here, insert a row. Again, you can see the sum formula doesn't come with us. So let's just adjust it. And then we're going to drag it out to the right, Control Shift right arrow, Control R. Again, now I'm out here at the right, and our formula is good to go. So let's just finish that up for each section. So F2, fix the formula, drag it to the right with Control R. Then I'll come down here to the bottom, insert a row, F2 to fix the formula, and then drag it out to the right with Control R. And again, out here you can see as I press F2, our formula is working fine. And then the very last cleanup item I want to do is just format my dates to match the formatting of the headers that we have as well. So I'm going to shade those blue, and then I'll make them bold as well. Okay, so at this point I think we've done enough cleanup that we can start actually analyzing the business. I know that we've made our model flexible by inserting these rows here. We know what are the hard-coded inputs. We know what's formulaic. We can see we've got an income statement over here, a balance sheet down here, and now we know all the dates at the top and when everything took place. So in the next video, we're going to transition away from purely just cleaning up the data to doing an analysis of the business in the past. And over the next several videos, we're going to be using that analysis of the past to make thoughtful assumptions about the future, and eventually those inputs will be located over here in these input columns. So we'll get started on that next.